can get a little bit subjective, but sometimes just having a rubric or a checklist can make it seem a little bit more objective. And then part of it is framing, and I've had mixed success with this, but what I explain is that, this is, it's not a single point in time evaluation. It's how would you help your classmate identify some of their weaknesses and work on those, as opposed to punitive, because then I feel like people are more likely to give honest feedback. I've had mixed results with that, though, so I'm interested to hear what others say.
Oh, there's some great points in that. The idea of making it constructive criticism.
This is Nicole. I would, along those lines, I would say that there really is a difference between grading and evaluation. And my experience has been when you move it more towards evaluate not only the project itself, but the process, you get a little more honesty, particularly for participants who maybe it took a little longer for their group to gel or connect. And that's always interesting, because I think people sometimes you go into group work with two frames of mind. One is, this is going to be easy, we all like each other, or two, I don't know who these people are, my schedule's so crazy, I don't know how I'm going to make it work. And so it's great to get that evaluation at the end also of the process, in addition to just did we complete the project?
Yeah, especially since we had many comments at the beginning of this session about the value of learning teamwork as a skill in and of itself, aside from whatever project they're working on. And Matt mentioned that you can get very subjective feedback on peer evaluations. And Emily, your idea of providing a clear rubric would definitely help to address that issue. Anything else? And then, of course, having individuals submit something on an individual basis in addition to whatever they submit as a group helps balance the workload in a group. Of course, it's more work for the instructor, so that's not always practical. So additional factors that we found in our online travels, make sure that the assignment is one that actually benefits from collaboration. For example, a complex problem that doesn't have just one correct answer. Heterogeneous groups. Willie, you mentioned the value of having those with an IT background work with those with the healthcare background. And Scott, you had mentioned students learning from each other as a benefit of group work. So this is especially true if they have diverse skills and experience. Making sure that you equip people with the right tech tools to communicate with each other, a decent virtual workspace, opportunities for synchronous communication via chats or webinar tools, that sort of thing. And once again, have the projects be quite structured with assigned roles and responsibility, or some guidelines on to help students assign roles and responsibilities, and then intermediate deadlines versus one deadline at the end of the project. This kind of helps people keep on track. Any other tips that you all have to share with the group from your group project travels?
Hi, this is Willie.
Hey, Willie.
I just have one. At the end of everything, I would have sort of a one-on-one conversation with every individual in each of the groups. Just a feedback of how it went and kind of an assessment of the entire group. I thought that was very helpful, not just for grading, but for the actual individual students to learn more about how they reacted in the group and what they would have changed and what they thought was useful and not useful. And so I really liked that idea as well.
Oh, interesting. And did it also change the way you structured your projects?
Most definitely. Every time, you know, a certain rendition of it came about, I would collect a lot more information from the students and how they felt. But also, in addition, I think that it helped the students as well, because they got to kind of just give lots of feedback just between the instructor and them about how it went, and they felt better about it at the end, about the project itself.
I can imagine. Great. Any other tips?
This is Nicole again. One of the things that I like to do when in an instructor role is to help make those crosswalks back for the students. Sometimes they get so involved in the group project that when it's all said and done, they focus too much on the project and not enough on how is this really going to relate to what I'm doing, and why are these skills important, or why was this activity important. So I like having some sort of kind of capture lecture or follow-up to it that says, that helps bring that point back home.
Great.
Yeah, this is Brooke here. I agree with Nicole, and I think some of the, one thing I've done in the grading rubrics is not only emphasizing the content skills that the group project is focused on, but also emphasizing and maybe even making those, depending on your learning outcomes, making those quite weighty, the metacognitive skills, or I guess the soft skills that the group work tends to support. So just pointing that out early on to the students, that they're evaluated on these various levels and not just on the output of the actual project.
Thank you. Any
I
other
have
comments?
a question about group work. I have not been successful in doing group work in online courses, and I know that we're kind of designing this content to be used in an online environment or online modality. So I'd just love to get some people's perspectives or some ideas that work for facilitating group work online.
Nicole, I don't know if you, and Nicole teaches how to teach online, and she teaches it online at the University of Washington. And I know you just finished up a class in December. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Nicole, but
yes, no. So the way I've approached it is I like to give people a little bit of warning and just let them know when this, because you don't launch group work right off in week one, but you let them know that in the subsequent weeks this is where we'll be headed. And the course that I've taught, we had participants from that were global around the world, so we really had things like time zones and even in some cases satellite connections, which are very different than just standard internet. So there were some technical challenges too, but I've run into bumps when I've had students self-assign to groups, but I like to still do that. I think some people make relations or know people are connected through discussion boards early on in the course and would prefer to work with them. But I found my role as an instructor to help marry partners up into a group, and even in sometimes later on coming back and giving little nudges to the group members just as a check-in to keep that group performing. I guess the biggest takeaway here is that as an instructor, I thought initially that it would be a lot more hands-off and that folks would just run with it, but there are certain things that you need to do to help with technology issues, to help with people connecting and lining up and interacting together. That still happens even with adult professionals.
Yeah. And we taught 1,000 people at the VA last year, and we were fortunate enough to be able to do the same course twice. So the first round, we didn't have enough structure in our group project, and it really was not nearly as successful as it should have or could have been. So the second time around, we did a couple of things. We created small group work areas, forums for each of the groups so that they had a space to connect, and we monitored those. And if we didn't see any activity, we checked in with the groups and said, hey, are you communicating in a different way, or are you guys just not able to get liftoff? You know, what's happening? So we did some monitoring, and you'll see on your screen, we created some detailed case. The project in this case was a case study that they worked on together. We outlined communication and collaboration tools. We talked about group process, and we gave them, okay, here's where you should be by week 3. Establish roles, responsibilities, and deadlines. Decide how decisions will be made. And we gave them some examples of the different roles. By week 4, develop a communication plan. So we were much more successful that second time around. There were still some gripes about, you know, people not pulling their weight, or as Nicole likes to say, going radio silent. But it was much more successful that time around.
Margaret, I think you bring a great point. It is that structure, and building in some intermediate deadlines where they perhaps have to post something. If the project work started in week 2 of an 8-week course and submissions need to be by week 7 of the final project, have them post something along the way that gives a little visibility, not only to the instructor, but perhaps to the rest of the groups, because you might have a stellar group that's working great and can act as a motivator, and for lack of a better way to say it, you might be able to shame a group that's non-performing into connecting and collaborating so that they are positioned to succeed with a submission on deadline, and perhaps even pull around what is a negative experience for them into being a positive group work experience. So those little deadlines along the way can really be a nice little cattle prod to move it along.
Thanks, Nicole. And I will confess that our case study guidelines, they're not a fantastic model in that we didn't create interdependence or some of those other elements that we talked about today. But I'll be happy to send it out at any rate. And that was pretty much all we had today. I don't know if anybody else has tips from the trenches to share. All right. Well, I hope you all have a great afternoon, or Willie, in your case, an excellent evening. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week. The next week's topic is assessments.
Great, thanks.
And we hope you'll share whatever ideas you have. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.